Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest impacting our community in a positive way. Today, I welcome LGBTQ Center OC Executive Director Peg Corley. The center's mission is to advocate on behalf of Orange County lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer questioning communities and provide services that ensure its well-being and positive identity. Thank you, Peg, for being on Impact OC.
Thank you, Don. It's great to be here.
Peg, please explain the LGBTQ acronym and the trans non-binary experience, and please discuss the use of pronouns.
Sure. So those are great questions. I get asked all the time by my straight friends, what is with the acronym? You guys just keep adding letters. So let me demystify it for you. LGBTQ. The L stands for lesbian. Those are women who identify as women, and they are attracted to or create romantic feelings towards other women. The G is for gay men who have sex with men or who are romantically attracted to other men. The B is for our bisexual community who may form attractions to either sex. And the T is for our transgender family members, folks whose gender identity does not match their sex assigned at birth. And then transgender can be an entire umbrella of other terms, so we'll get into that as we talk about non-binary also. And then Q stands for queer or questioning. And, you know, back in the old days, the word queer, it had a very negative connotation. That has changed. Our young people, our youth community has really reclaimed the word queer in a powerful way. And it's a way to describe gender non-conforming community, and it's a very diverse term. Questioning is just what it sounds like, folks who are still questioning where they fit, and they don't want to be put in any box until they know exactly who they are and what they're comfortable with.
Now, the trans non-binary experience.
Yeah, so, you know, I think generally speaking, the lesbian folks, the gay gentlemen, bisexuals, we have come a long way over the last 10 years, 20 years, and life has gotten quite a bit easier for us, at least in California. We're very much more mainstream. We can have the careers we want. We can get married to who we love. We can have children. But our transgender folks are still struggling, still having a very hard time. They're extremely marginalized. And the experience of the transgender community is such that it's difficult. They have a lot of challenges. And as I mentioned, it's an umbrella term. So a transgender in the simplest terminology is, as I mentioned before, someone who was born and was assigned a sex at birth, either male or female, but their gender identity, how they feel about themselves and how they identify internally, it doesn't match their anatomy. And so that creates all kinds of challenges. Imagine going through puberty and developing sexual characteristics that don't match how you feel. And maybe they even feel foreign to you. So that it creates a lot of challenges in that regard. And then the non-binary experience, non-binary is under the trans umbrella. So transgender, it can encompass a lot of different types of experiences. Non-binary is one that we see a lot today. A lot of our youth are not identifying male nor female. So it's almost like, don't put me in either of those boxes. I'm not on one end or the other. I'm somewhere in the middle, or I'm both. And that is what non-binary means. It's not a binary identity.
Now, is there a term given to someone who has had the operation? They were born a certain sexual identity and then they changed physically?
You know, a medical transition is what you're talking about, and there's not a term for it other than medically transitioned. It's not something that people are, you know, we don't ask people that, just like you wouldn't ask me any of my health history necessarily, or what kind of surgeries have I had, and I wouldn't ask you. So it's not something that people identify outwardly. It's just part of their story. It's part of their experience as an individual.
Now, when we talk about non-binary, is that of all ages or just the younger ages?
All ages. You're seeing it more and more in our young people. I think because it's become okay to actually not just accept gender roles as they're assigned, but to identify and understand who we are as people, what makes us different, what makes us similar to others, and then let let those around you know how you identify, who you are, because no one knows better than you how you identify, how you feel, and how you walk about in the world.
Are there people willing to express themselves in that nature, or some people willing to, as they say, hide in the closet with it?
Certainly there's a lot of folks that have not come out, and they do feel as though they identify as non-binary, but more and more people are coming out. Even the state of California, the DMV now has on our driver's license that is an option. You don't have to be male, female. You can actually check the non-binary box. So it's becoming very common, and something that we all just kind of need to get caught up on the terminology so that we can understand folks in that experience.
Explain the need for the LGBTQ Center.
Yeah, so we were founded 52 years ago, believe it or not, quite a long time ago, and the need has changed in that the LGBTQ movement, has certainly been through different challenges and different health challenges and political challenges, but never before have we ever been needed this much. I mean, just the advocacy element. So if more and more people are coming out, and they're coming out under various identities, they're having a lot of different types of challenges, both in school, in places of employment, in housing, in medical care. And the LGBTQ centers across the country are the organizations providing advocacy and support for folks going through those challenges.
And explain how they're helping.
Yeah, we help through various programs and services. So pretty much anyone from, age really a toddler all the way up to your most senior years of living, any sort of challenges or adversity that an LGBTQ person is going through, either it's, with their health, with their mental health, through, workforce development, we are offering programs that support those people. So generally speaking, wherever people are most marginalized, and sometimes twice marginalized. So we're talking about, for example, trans people of color, right? Or with abilities different, trans people of color. So marginalized, and it's difficult for folks sometimes to get health care that is affirming, that is, holistic, that the medical provider sees them as one whole individual, and we help people find the tools they need in order to thrive.
I understand the center's in Santa Ana, and you help 14,000 people a year.
That's correct.
And with that said, if a person is under the age of 18, don't they need parental permission for you to help them?
They don't need parental permission. There's certain things that they might need, like if it's a field trip or if we're going somewhere, certainly we need a guardian or a parent to give permission for that. But if somebody wants to, log into a supportive chat group, they can do that. That's moderated or facilitated. If it's a mental health counseling session, yes, we need a parent's permission for the youth to take part in that. But if it's a peer support group where peers of that youth's age group are talking about current events, what was it like in school for me today? What's it like for me at home, this week? If it's that kind of thing, no, they don't need a parent's consent to join that.
We'll talk about the youth services. What do you offer?
Sure. So we have a pretty robust youth program. So we serve about 5,000 youth a year, and we do it in a couple of different ways. So not just are we serving young people that come to the center for different peer support groups or events or counseling or tutoring. We also work in many schools, about 53 different middle schools and high schools throughout Orange County. Just to give you an example, LA County has paid staff positions for people to support LGBTQ youth. So there are actual paid staff positions to provide that support. Orange County doesn't have that. So the LGBTQ Center, OC, provides that support. So we have partners with various middle schools and high schools. We'll work with the school counselors as well as GSA advisors, so to make sure that the campus is affirming and safe for our LGBTQ youth.
Are more and more people becoming acceptance?
I think over the last, I would just say 10 years, I think the acceptance rate has grown immensely in the right direction. I do feel like our allies out there are in greater number than ever before. So more accepting. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that those who are not accepting are also more, they're louder than ever before. So the opposition is it's seemingly bigger. I'm not sure that it is actually larger, but they're louder.
How young is a person when they realize who they are?
It's very different. Everybody's got their own story. I was 3. So they could be very young. It could be your first memory. It could be something that was, kind of a passage upon your 20s. It could be some people come out late in their 30s, 40s, 50s. It's different for everybody.
And when people encounter those who are somewhat different, how should they approach them?
Just like, it's not just an LGBTQ issue. We don't know when we meet someone what we have in common and what we might not have in common. I think the best approach is to not make assumptions about somebody and get to know them, and then make sure that, in the process of getting to know someone, that you make it pretty clear that you're accepting and that you're not judging them on who they are, but rather you're making space for who they are.
Explain allyship.
Allyship. Well, we wouldn't be where we are today without it. Allyship for the LGBTQ community, and I think you can insert your marginalized community here. I'm going to talk about the LGBTQ community. But allyship is, or to be an ally, is an action word. You've got to be doing something. To just be standing back and saying, I don't have any problem with gay people. I don't have any problem with non-binary people. They do that. That's their business. I got no problem with it. That's not really being an ally. That's being a bystander. Being an ally is when you hear someone saying something disparaging about another, someone who's different than them or different than you, and you feel like, wow, that's uncomfortable. That's really disrespectful and disparaging. Being an ally means saying something. Saying, I'm uncomfortable with what you've just said there. I think that's hurtful. I think maybe you don't understand where that person is coming from, and maybe you might do well to get some education or information in that regard. So an ally is someone that does something to help protect a group of people that is marginalized or vulnerable.
Do you offer support groups to help people become allies, to understand?
We do. So we have various groups that we actually have an advocacy action network where people of all walks come together to advocate for and support the LGBTQ community. And we basically put it out among the network whenever there is an opportunity to be an ally. And then we organize, we inform everybody, and then we let them, either participate or not.
Are we finding that schools are more accepting of children in this regard?
Schools are more accepting, generally speaking. In California, it was passed years ago, that curriculum was supposed to be inclusive. So when I say that, I mean, history curriculum, sexual education curriculum is supposed to be inclusive, including the LGBTQ history and LGBTQ sexual health. Most schools observe that legislation passed by the state of California. Some schools still are not. Some schools are very slow to roll out the inclusive curriculum, but we're getting closer to where we need to be.
And you have support groups for individuals, couples, and family therapy.
Yes. So we serve many people through our mental health counseling program, as you said, in various ways. We conduct about 8,000 different counseling sessions every year in multiple languages, 7 days a week, and on a sliding scale. So nobody is ever turned away because they can't afford to pay for counseling.
What do they need to be counseled on?
You name it. Anything. I could come up with 5 things right now that I might like to be counseled on. Yeah, anything at all. But really, a lot of just family therapy around our youth is coming out as LGBTQ, and the parents want to support that youth as much as they can and in the best ways possible, but they don't have the tools to do it. And that's a real common reason for therapy.
And you have LGBTQ cultural competency training.
Right. So we are creating safe spaces for LGBTQ people and allies to be employed. Safe spaces in companies throughout Orange County. So what that looks like is, there's a company that maybe they have an individual who's coming out as transgender and they want to support that person, but they don't know what is the right way to do that. So we will come in and we will provide a training for management, and then we will provide a training for staff so that, again, they have the tools they need to be affirming for this person, and then also competent in the culture so that they know what to say, what not to ask, what not to say.
What not to say.
Would you like me to go through
Yes,
that?
please.
You betcha. So certain things, we talked about this a few minutes ago, but like you wouldn't ask me as a colleague anything about my medical history unless I chose to share it with you. So you wouldn't ask somebody if you've had surgery yet. That's not an appropriate question. You also wouldn't want to say to someone, although it may seem very innocent, and I can see why this happens, but when you say to somebody, wow, why would you want to be a woman? You had it made as a man. There's a lot of reasons why that person has decided to go through a very difficult and trying process of transitioning. So you wouldn't understand why they're doing it. So saying things like that are kind of a backhanded comment, and they don't feel very good.
So are you finding that a lot of people want to understand?
I think almost everybody wants to understand. I think it's kind of it's been mystified a bit, and it's complicated because it's newish for a lot of folks, and I think people want the information and they don't necessarily know how to get it, or they're afraid of looking like they're not woke enough to know, but you got to get the information from somewhere.
You said woke. Will you please identify that?
Yeah, woke is wanting. And this is just it's not the Wikipedia definition. This is my definition. But woke to me is wanting to be a better person. Woke is wanting to never stop learning and being a better person and showing up as a better individual.
You have transgender health and wellness programs.
Yes, so for our trans community, it's not easy finding a physician that is trans affirming, and by the way, happens to be in your medical network. So we help link people. First of all, we train physicians to be affirming, and then we link folks. We find out what is your medical provider, what insurance do you have, and then where do you live, and then we can link people to culturally competent medical care providers or mental health care providers if it's not the center. And then also we help people figure out the A to Z in transitioning, because there's a lot to know. And if you're parents of a transgender child and you don't know what to do and when, do we get therapy for our child? Do we get therapy for the family? Do we do it together? Do we do it separately? So we kind of talk through everything so that people can make the best decision for themselves.
What is the demographic of the people you serve, the age?
Yeah, all ages, Dawn, really. We, as I said, we're serving youth through schools and also through the center. So primarily middle school, high school aged youth. And then we have young adult programs. And then we also have seniors programs. So really, I would say middle school through, the elderly years of life.
Explain the 55 plus support group.
Sure. So the 55 plus support group has a couple of different platforms. One is what it sounds like, just peer support. So social outings, hikes, going to concerts, talking about the arts and maybe film and dance. I mean, we get together and we talk about things that are interesting to our seniors. And then also we talk about LGBTQ history, and our seniors they've been there. They've seen it firsthand. And so our young people, our youth, are extremely interested in hearing the stories from our 55 plus group. So we do some cross-generational programming so that the seniors can share their experience with the younger people, and that has been really popular. And then the other platform is we have a case management program for our seniors who need help finding the resources available to them, or getting to the resources available to them. And a lot of our LGBTQ seniors, they don't have children of their own. They may not even have family looking out for them. So to have an affirming case management, a person, a friend, just to be looking in on you every week is very meaningful.
How are you funded?
Well, that's a very good question. We're funded through a lot of different ways. So nicely for us, we're funded through, foundations, big foundations in the state of California. We're funded by the state of California. We're funded through the county, Orange County Healthcare Agency. We're funded through corporations. And we're also funded through individuals who want to support the LGBTQ community.
What about volunteering?
Volunteers are one of our most important resources. We do a lot of work through our volunteers, a lot of outreach. We table at events, just for example, like at UC Irvine, we'll be at different events here. And most of the time, the person sitting on the other side of the table talking about our programs is a volunteer that just wants to help people. When you call the center, someone answers the phone, that very well might be a volunteer as well. At any given time, we have about 100 to 150 active volunteers volunteering their time.
And they pretty much provide information.
They know more about the center probably than I do, because there's a massive resource book that they know from cover to cover. Yes.
What are some of the misconceptions people have?
Oh gosh, I think one of the major misconceptions is that we're more different than we are alike, and we really aren't.
What are some of the events you put on?
We have events in each age group. So each program, the youth program, will have events for youth. I think the premier event that we have for youth every year is the Youth Convening. It's the only conference in Orange County put on by Orange County LGBTQ youth for LGBTQ youth. And we take over a school on a Saturday. Teachers will come, parents will come, sometimes the mayor of Santa Ana comes, and there's all kinds of different breakout presentations around mental health, stigma reduction, and just positive, affirming programming for youth. And that's about 300 to 400 youth come to that every year. And then each different program has its own events, but also the center has events for the community, so the greater community. And then we have coming up on May 6th, our Indigo Ball, which is a black tie gala. About 400 folks will come together, celebrate the work of the center and the progress of the LGBTQ movement.
Thank you, LGBTQ Center OC Executive Director Peg Corley, for being on Impact OC. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Dawn Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.